You're gonna miss the end of the game.
You'll have to tell me how it comes out.
I never reveal an ending. And no one will be reseated during the climactic revelation.
Plays were routinely bought by studios and made. So it was an obvious thing that we'd get some bids, and there were a bunch of them. And I thought, gee, wouldn't it be great if we could just put a record here of these guys' extraordinary performances in this thing, rather than get a spectrum of Hollywood names and have it become just an ordinary routine thing. So I was young enough and dumb enough to turn down a lot of money for it.
It takes a certain flair to squander one's unemployment check at Pavillon.
To Mart's absolute macho, ballsy credit, he turned it down. He said, I'm not doing it that way. It's this cast or no movie. We were blown away by this. This skinny little guy in his first big success having the courage to say that to Hollywood. I think it was partly because he had been in Hollywood and he knew what the game was, and he knew that the best way to treat Hollywood was to slap it in the face and to say no. No is the biggest yes in Hollywood.
Movies are such garbage, who can take them seriously?
I wanted to produce it, and I wanted to write it, and I wanted the original cast in it, and I wanted the guy who directed the play to direct it. Well, I got all of the above, except having Robert Moore direct it. They just said, you know, Mart, you can't go out there with 9 guys who've never been in a movie. You've got to get a guy that's had a track record with film. And I had just that week gone to see Harold Pinter's The Birthday Party. And it was directed by a guy that I had never heard of, called William Friedkin.
He and Dominic Dunn approached me to see if I was interested in doing a film of Boys in the Band. They first sent me the printed script, which I thought was terrific. And then I saw a production of the play. I thought it played great. I thought the script was just marvelous and that it would make a wonderful film.
I knew William Friedkin. I was the vice president of a studio called Four Star, and so I knew him that way. He was young and dynamic, and he's electric, Billy. I mean, there's nobody like him. He has a love of actors, and he has a love of film, and he could talk about it 24 hours a day.
It was clear that Billy was extremely talented, and because the film, it was hard work, you know. So I said to him, I don't think it'd be a good idea for you or me to blow up in front of the cast or the crew. So if something I do is galling you or something you do is galling me, let's just hold on until we can get off the stage and air our differences. And he said, agreed, that's a good idea. And that's exactly what we stuck to. We never actually did have a knockdown drag out at all.
I designed it so that it would have various visual styles at different points in the film. The opening is a kind of a homage to New York in 1967. And it captures a certain part of Upper East Side New York life at that time, and as well as providing quick little character strokes on each of the characters.
I went shopping today and bought all kinds of goodies.
And then once it settles into Michael's apartment, the visuals, I wanted it to be very busy and basically very light, with a lot of movement and a lot of interaction between Donald and Michael.
Well, am I stunning?
And then gradually, the tone of the lighting becomes more somber. The movement continues, but at a far different pace, until finally the camera just settles down toward the end and watches Michael's breakup, and ultimately it becomes a story of friendship and love. And so I wanted to not have too many stylistic factors going on at that time.
Will I see you next Saturday?
Unless you have other plans.
I never felt it was a film play. It was a movie. Well, that was Billy. I mean, Billy would never just do it as a filmed play. You know, he's too inventive.
Everything in Boys in the Band was more stimulating a problem to solve than the French Connection chase, for example, which I did right afterwards. You have a lot more freedom to do an action scene, but it's a tremendous challenge for a director to keep what is basically dialogue interesting. And as I look at the film now, I'm very pleased with, how it looks.
All right, this is a raid. Everyone's under arrest.
Hi, darling. Connie Casserole. Oh,
the smartest thing he did as a film director, I think, is to say, this is going to be, a film in which we watch a group of people in real time in a single room. And with the one exception of that astonishing thunderstorm, sort of adheres to it. He doesn't try and have them all leave the apartment and go wandering the streets or anything, because of course to do that, to break that hothouse atmosphere would be to destroy the play. So he gets what it's about.
Mart had told me that he sort of modeled the set after the apartment of his friend, the actress Tammy Grimes. And she had this balcony, and we went there, and I looked at this balcony, and geez, it'd be great to shoot here. She was very accommodating, but then when the action moved back to the balcony at night, that was a soundstage. And it was built to match the Tammy Grimes apartment. It was extensive enough to contain a rainstorm. The rainstorm, which looks very real, was done on this soundstage.
Alan, counterclockwise. Larry, and Emery, and Bernard.
I met all these guys, and I thought they were perfect. But that didn't mean that you could take what they had done on stage and just film it. It was much more difficult, because on stage, you pitch your performance to the last row in the balcony. I really knew that it would be more difficult to take this cast and put it on film.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
They all had known each other for over a year and, had been together every night doing the play. And there were little groups within the overall, but they were as one.
What was the impression of Billy coming into that set situation, or that previously successful situation with actors? He was insatiably curious.
He wanted to rehearse for a week or two before we started shooting. And I think we all sort of thought, what the fuck are we going to rehearse to? We've been doing it for 3 years, And most of us sort of thought, how can any director change what is now innate in us? And I think there was a little bit of anxiety or a little bit of fear.
Mickey, please.
Well, Bill Friedkin did it. And with all great respect to Bill, we did rehearse, but he didn't change us. He didn't change the work that had been done or our characters. He changed it for the cinema, for the film, for the blocking and stuff like that, which of course was very, very different.
Very well.
I knew I'd have to redirect it, restage it completely.
Give it to me.
Because we didn't have a fourth wall. The camera can go anywhere.
Oh, he can go if he wants to.
One of the things I tried to do was keep a number of people on screen at the same time in different groupings. Not just resort too often to tight close-ups that excluded everybody else.
Well, if you don't like it, you can always take it back and exchange it for something else.
No, I think this one's just nifty. It's gorgeous.
He was willing to face and confront every single situation that came up. And I think he did, he won us over, really.
I do love it. I don't care who knows it.
The actors made the transition to film, and I was happy with it, but I must hand that to Billy. He talked to them, directed them. Friedkin had everything to do with that.
I think you know everybody anyway. It's the same old tired fairies you've seen around since the day one.
Kenneth Nelson was the original young boy in the play The Fantastics. Kenneth had a great reputation as a Broadway and musical comedy actor. Then came Boys in the Band, and it put him on a completely different level as an actor. where you could see the tremendous dramatic range that he had. But yes, he had many similarities to Michael, both a powerful ego and a bruised ego. Very emotional, and Kenneth had some of that.
However, thanks to the silver screen, your neurosis has got style.
Frederick Holmes was Donald, and I think Mart probably realized that and saw that. I liked Frederick a lot. I think he was a very gifted and subtle actor.
My dear, I thought you'd perished. Where have you been hiding your classically chiseled features?
Cliff Gorman was a great actor with a wide range. He played Lenny Bruce on stage in the play Lenny. He didn't do the film, Dustin Hoffman did. But Cliff did a wide variety of characters. And Emery is, of course, flamboyant. Emery wears his homosexuality on his sleeve.
Kiss me quick, I'm Carmen.
Cliff was kind of a tough guy. He was a New York guy, you know. To turn into this queen was quite a transformation.
Think the Giants are gonna win the pennant this year?
Fucking A, Mac.
Cliff was a wonderful impersonator. I think what was hard for him was the way that people responded to him. He would be walking down the street with his wife or things like this, and people would say, "What are you trying to prove?" And people believed him so much because he was so good. And I mean, he was brilliant. It was an extraordinary performance. But people so believed it, they didn't believe he could play a straight role.
Isn't anyone going to have seconds?
As I see it today, it's something I would modify today, with the same dialogue.
You like a Chinese laundress?
And the same things going on, but with a lot less obtrusiveness. Which is not to say I think that what Cliff did was a mistake. I think it's a great portrayal.
I'd make somebody a good wife.
And it's probably the character that you most come away with.
Ask him if he's got any hot cross buns.
Come on, Emery, knock it off, will you?
You remind me of an old maid school teacher.
You remind me of a chicken wing.
But to me, the subtlest, most extraordinary performance in the film is Larry Luckinbill's. He is so believable and provokes so much compassion.
What kind of an understanding do you want?
I've had, in the last 40 years, audience members who saw either the play or the movie or both come up to me and say that I changed their life. And I always have to say, no, Hank changed your life. Hank was written by Mart Crowley, and Mart Crowley is the one who put those words there.
For a long time, I either labeled it something else or...
I thought, this is a reason to do a play. This is a real reason to be an actor. It's a reason for any art that somebody can take something that's invented and make it real in their own lives.
Yes, you're gonna have to excuse me.
At one time, we thought that we needed to show the two of them upstairs in the bedroom kissing. It was the bane of my existence throughout the making of the film.
What do you imagine Hank and Larry are doing up there?
I refused. And then Keith Prentice refused. And Mart was sort of watching this from the sidelines.
And they would come to me and try to talk me out of doing it. Finally, after constant stream of discussion about whether to do it or not, I said, look, let's shoot it. And then we'll all look at it, and if we think that it's not important or not working or whatever, we won't use it. We'll all decide that together.
I said to Keith, there's only one way to do this, and that's to do what we would really do as Larry and Hank. And he said, yeah. So we went back and said, okay, we'll do it. But we're going to do it ourselves, and it's going to be improvised. And what happened was, I sat on the bed and I waited for him to come in. And he came in and he just looked at me, and we just stared at each other for a long time. And then Keith Prentice, Larry, started to cry. And I stood up and hugged him. And then we just held each other. And then finally we kissed each other.
And when we came to edit it, Nick and Mart and I agreed we didn't need it, that it was an overt statement that was implicit in the film itself. But he and Larry, played by Keith Prentice, work so well. I believe their relationship totally when I see it now 40 years later.
I think they're having their first fight.
Yeah, the first one since the last one.
Everybody got along with Keith. Keith was sort of the clown of the company, basically, you know, and Keith was very easy to get along with.
I'm old-fashioned. I like them all, but I like them one at a time.
This is almost unbelievable. He was originally cast as Harold. He played Harold in the workshop production because Leonard Fry, whom we wanted, was not available. And so Keith played Harold in the workshop. And then when it was moved uptown, we moved him over to the role of Larry, and the brilliant Leonard Fry came in.
Yeah, the way Billy filmed Leonard's entrance was great. I didn't know what he was going to do to solve the problem, because in the play, it's an all-in-one. The more I live with the film, the more I realize what a great job he did. The entrance of Harold is a classic. It's a classic of filmmaking, I think.
What I am, Michael, is a 32-year-old, ugly, pockmarked Jew fairy.
Leonard Fry had been in a lot of plays, but, you know, Leonard Fry was a genius. I mean, he had a lot to work with in what Mart wrote for him.
And how are you this evening?
Harold was the guy who got most of the laughs.
Well, that wasn't as much fun as I thought it would be.
He's come to terms with who he is.
Leonard Fry's performance was kind of shocking, daring, and strange, and like a visitation from another world. I mean, you don't really know why this creature is so different than everyone else in the film, but it's, you know, it's a really magnificent performance.
I'm turning on, and you're just turning.
And the way that he holds himself, he's supposed to have been an ice skater, so he sort of slides around the room, but he also holds himself in such a way as to suggest that if he moved too abruptly, he might come to pieces.
Who is she?
His name is Alan McCarthy.
Not the famous college chum.
Peter White, both in appearance and attitude and manner, is the one who kind of brings the audience into the scene. We kind of see a lot of it through his eyes because he comes in as the stranger. And I consciously, but hopefully subtly, tried to show a lot of the action through Alan's eyes. And Peter was quite marvelous in portraying that stranger who's kind of out of place but fascinated.
I really feel terrible about barging in on you fellas this way.
People have asked me that for years. What did he come there about? Is he really gay, or is he really straight, or what is his story?
Did he ever tell you why he was crying on the phone?
And I just thought, you know, it's better to just leave that ambiguous, just like life, you know, who knows?
I can remember we were in rehearsals for the play, and I was having kind of a hard time sort of finding where Alan was. And Bob Moore, who was our director, he said, let me give you one hint, which is half the audience thinks he is, and half the audience thinks he isn't. That's what you want to accomplish. He said, that's your objective.
Have you heard the term closet queen?
And I can remember not too terribly long ago, I was coming out of the academy and I'd seen some movie, and there was a young couple who sort of came up to me and they said, we've got a question we'd like to ask you. Was Alan or wasn't he? And I said, I can't tell you.
Michael, if you're insinuating that I'm homosexual, I can only say that you're mistaken.
Am I?
It's left, I think, genuinely ambiguous. And that becomes most interesting to me in the moment when he makes the phone call and he calls his wife. And really, I think maybe the most powerful moment in the whole film, in a way.
Give me that telephone. Justin, did you hear what that son of...
You know, the question is what you're watching a group of gay men sort of falling back in shame in the face of heterosexual fidelity?
Fran?
Because everybody seems very sad at that moment. Seeing this guy kind of slamming his closet door shut very firmly and saying, I'm going back to my wife.
I love you very much.
Why did I call? Why did I do that?
That's a very subtle performance by Reuben Green. I had not seen Reuben Green before this or after. I don't know what's happened to Reuben, but he was a wonderful actor to work with on this, and the transformation he makes from a sort of a delightful, completely sober human being into a falling down drunk, and through a traumatic event that Michael forces him into.
I wish I hadn't called, man.
It was one of the most impressive pieces of acting that I've ever worked with in anything.
I got to lose.
Your dignity, that's what you've got to lose.
Once again, it's like a little performance dropped in from heaven. All of these performances are fantastic. Letourneau, the same. I mean, where did that come from?
We saw him on the deck of a place called the Botel at Fire Island, where the boats come in and everybody gathers and has drinks, a big bar. And I was standing with Bob Moore, and I said, that guy over there, you know, I think he'd be perfect for Cowboy. Do you know him? And he said, oh my God, Mart, you know, he's on a soap opera. Oh no, you're always casting those faces. My God, you're a Hollywood casting man, you know. And I said, well, I think that's the guy. And indeed he was.
Too bad about this poor boy's face. How could his beauty ever compare with my soul?
Everybody adored Bobby. Bobby was almost cursed with that look. You know, he was so put into a type because, I mean, that extraordinary look that he had. But Bob was, first of all, very smart, terribly caring.
It looks like spaghetti and meatballs, all sort of flattened out.
It's been in the steam room.
It has?
Robert Letourneau, who played the cowboy, was the first to die of AIDS. And he never could reconcile. He was so young, so handsome, and he was going to die. And the Gormans, Cliff and Gail Gorman, they became his family. They were simply fantastic to Bob Letourneau. It was as if he was their child.
Come on, Tex. Let's go to my place.
As my father said to me when he died in my arms, I don't understand any of it. I never did.
The best line in the play is Michael's line at the end, which really struck me. I never understood any of it. That was kind of an epitaph for a whole generation, epitaph for any of us when we die.
Well, that had stuck in my head a long time because it was true. My father did die in my arms and said those words to me. So it was very potent for me, and I just quoted it. I thought that was a pretty good end. I don't understand any of it. I never did.
Who knows what any of it means? Do you know what any of it means? I don't know what any of it means. Do we know why we're here? Do we know why there's so much suffering in the world, so much disease and illness?
Don't leave me. Please don't leave me.
And by the end of the film, Michael, through a traumatic event, realizes what a mess he is. And that's the first step toward self-improvement and transcendence.
Maybe with a lot more work, you'll be able to help yourself some more.
So I think the ending is very hopeful, but it's all left with the audience. There is no resolution of anything. It's a slice of life.
You suppose there's any possibility of just flushing this place?
It's totally still a slice of regular life. The cattiness,
bitch,
the mind games.
I can beat you at it, so don't push me.
All of that stuff is absolutely real to all kinds of people. Has nothing to do with gay or not gay.
You know how I feel. Your private life is your own affair.
Right after that movie, I missed doing Boys for a long time. If somebody said, would you like to do it tomorrow? I think I still know the dialogue. I really think I do.
Well, can I get you a drink?
Scotch, please.
Well, I guess I'm the only beer drinker here tonight.
The set was one big party, like the film. We'd have friends come in. There would be drinks at the end of the day. We'd all eat together. I just tried to create an atmosphere where they felt free enough to expose sides of themselves that they might not have otherwise. And I now see in looking at the film that that worked.
He's about as straight as the yellow brick road.
You're such a fag.
You hateful sow.
Why don't you have a piece of watermelon and hush up?
Michael, you're a charming host.
Because I was so drunk, I don't remember a thing.
Oh, bullshit, you remember.
Just friends, lovers no more.